Happy Good Friday, folks. Hope you're doing well. And though it's a Good Friday, it is a holiday. I hope you are enjoying it. To those who are celebrating, well, happy Good Friday to you. To those who aren't, well, hope you're enjoying the holiday. And to those who are watching the show, you know what time it is. It is a Feel Good Friday. And happy to have y'all on because you are fantastic people. We love to have you here with us. Last night was interesting, wasn't it? Interesting debate, a lot of great high times. It was a lot of back and forth. It was interesting at points, but then Poilievre led the smack down late and changed the whole trajectory of the debate and possibly of the whole election. It was very fascinating to watch. Then we had the whole squabble with the media, and that's been sort of tailing off now, which is good. And now the focus is back on the results of the debates, and that's exactly where it should be. And a lot of people are talking like, what happened? What was the vibe? What do people feel? How are people feeling about the election last night or the debate last night? And Abacus put out a snap poll after the debate had concluded last night for the English debate. And here it was, debate impact on leader impressions. Mark Carney was favored over Poilievre by 6 points, which I thought was interesting because when you move down to the next data point, which leader did more to win your vote? And which is what I thought was very fascinating. Poilievre outright 43% to Mark Carney's 40%. But then you look at people who have watched a little bit, watched some of it, then watched all of it. And look how the numbers change. And this kind of shows you how our election and why our election was called early. People who watched the debate for a little bit, 37% to Poilievre, 44% to Carney. Then to those who watched some of the debate, 41% Poilievre, 41% Carney. And those who watched all the debate, 47% Poilievre, 37% Carney. There's a couple variables to why this is the case. One being, as people get to know Carney and see more of him, they start realizing, this guy really may not be the guy. It goes back to the whole thing, the accident waiting to happen. You know, we've been talking about all of that. And the reason why we've talked about why the election got called sooner is because the more you learn about this guy, the less palatable he becomes to the regular person. Or the second survey you had to look at was which leader did more to lose your vote, and Poilievre is 29 to 21. As you have 29% saying Poilievre did more to lose their vote, and then you have 43% who said Poilievre did more to win their vote, which means Poilievre is winning over more than he is currently losing, is what this is telling me. And there's a couple points. Again, this is more in terms of the people who are really locked in on politics. Larry Brock pointed out a very interesting point. He talked about how Mark Carney mixed up the Keystone and TMX pipelines. And he's right. I remember when Mark Carney brought the pipelines up and talked about how Canada owns the Keystone pipeline. I felt that to be odd. So what was he talking? He was referring to the TMX pipeline here, is what we'll see.
Secondly, recognizing that the biggest component of that was the cost of building Keystone. Keystone, which is the pipeline which has helped to increase oil exports by 50% in this country. That is an asset of the people of Canada. We own it. And the question of what to do it. So it's not a subsidy that has disappeared, it's actually an asset of Canada.
And again, this isn't a point that's going to win or lose anybody because we already know Alberta is going to be voting in favor of Poilievre. There's really no going to be switching those votes out. But again, just shows you more of the point of Mark Carney where he's not completely locked in on what's even happening in this country. When you mix up the names of pipelines, it just shows that you have a lack of care in terms of our resources, lack of care into what's going on in this country. It shows that you've been out of this country for over 10 years and it's showing because look of all things he's mixed up. Mixing up the Polytechnic mass shooting, mixing up the pipelines. And there's a few other things where he's mixed things up. Not that he wasn't wrong, we understand where he's going with it, but again, he just keeps mixing up what is happening and what has happened in terms of history in this country. Something to keep an eye out for, especially for people who are realizing that they want someone who knows something about Canada, who's been here and has been fighting for Canadians for a long time. Mr. Tom Montclair did an opinion piece for CP24 today saying some hard lessons learned by Carney and Poilievre from the English debate. And one thing he points out here is the final question that Carney gives to Poilievre. Somehow, someone in Carney's camp came up with a bright idea of having him use his one and only question to Poilievre to try to corner him on the issue of security clearance. Here's a primer on that one. When Trudeau made an absolute shambles of the issue of foreign interference in Canadian elections, he was on the ropes like never before. It was, in my view, the beginning of the end of his time as Prime Minister. Trudeau's elves had cobbled together their big aha repost against Poilievre. They attacked him for not applying for and receiving security clearance to be allowed to view the evidence, quote unquote, about MPs who might be involved in helping foreign powers stick their noses in Canadian politics. It was a spurious attack, and Poilievre was completely right, constitutionally and institutionally, to simply say no. He didn't want hands tied in any way. And one of the conditions of looking at those files was that he would have been barred from talking about the information he had been given. Montclair continues to lay it down of how Poilievre was right on this issue, and he knocked it out of the park and ended that debate on a very high note. Rick Perkins, MP Rick Perkins, laid it pretty simply. Says Carney sells extreme fear as his closing with not a single fact to back it. All he is to offer is fear, not hope. And you see the difference between the Poilievre ending statement and the Carney ending statement. Poilievre's closing statement was, we are going to get our country back. We are going to make things cheaper again. We're going to get out of the way. We're going to allow you to produce. We're going to allow you to make something of your lives without government intervention. Those weren't his exact words, but that's essentially what he was getting at. And Mark Carney, well, it was all about how we're going to fight Trump, make Canada strong, stand on our own 2 feet, and fight Trump, fight Trump. We're not going to let Trump take us over. That was the messaging. And that's what Rick Perkins is getting at here. One sold fear, the other sold hope. And that was the difference. And even today, as Mark Carney's down at Niagara Falls, he's continuing on this campaign of fear.
We will do them and we will win. America is divided. This will make them weaker with time. We are uniting. This will make us stronger. We can give ourselves so much more than the Americans can ever take away. So it's time to chart our own path, to realize our own potential, to build Canada strong.
And people make the argument, oh, he's talking about building Canada strong, coming together, uniting. Yes, but he's only able to do that because there's a common enemy they're trying to create in Donald Trump in the United States. They're not going to take us over. They can't take away from us. They're going to get weaker. We're going to get stronger. This is the thing with every election. Welcome to how politics works. They have to have a common enemy. If they don't have that, they fall apart. And that's what we're looking at here. Poilievre's campaigning on the last 10 years instead of saying, do you really want to keep going along with that? And they don't have that to look at because they don't have a good record. So they're going to look at an enemy that they can rally people around, and they're going to instill fear, doubt, anxiety in the population. That's exactly what he's offering and what he keeps pushing in the debates, in his speeches, and in his posts on social media. This is the difference between the two platforms. Pierre Poilievre today coming out saying the liberal tax on plastic food packaging will drive up grocery costs for families by $400 a year, increase food waste, and force 60,000 jobs out of Canada. The Conservative plan for change will axe the food packaging tax and scrap these costly Liberal bans to save your job and your money. Of course, what he's referring to here is the Liberals looking to axe plastic packaging by the year 2030 and try to make sure 50% of packaging contents are from recycled materials. And the issue is that from what research is showing, that has actually driven up greenhouse emissions. It has actually driven up waste. It has not actually been helpful in some ways. Yes, the packaging is more quote unquote eco-friendly, but it's actually making the problem worse and less reusable and having less of a circular economy. And Pierre Poilievre was like, all right, well, if that's not working, then we're going to go back to what we were doing when it was significantly cheaper to package goods and it was helping food be cheaper on the shelves. We see here an old article from Sask Today from over a year ago. It says proposed plastic ban causes concern over millions in costs. And you come down here. The April 2023 proposal set out targets to reduce plastic pollution, such as requiring 75% of fresh fruits and vegetables to be sold in bulk without plastic packaging by 2026. And 95 grocers have estimated the elimination of plastics will cost them about $6 billion. Lemaire said that is a conservative estimate based on 2023 Deloitte Canada report helping the industry understand the impacts of the ban. This isn't single-use plastics, he says. These are plastics that can be recycled and put into a circular economy. We're anticipating if we were to eliminate the technology from our sector, it would be upwards of 34% increase in food costs. He said there are some alternatives to plastics, but they all come at a higher cost. Strawberries, for example, can't be packed into some of them because they contain high moisture and wouldn't survive shipping. We need to look at a fit-for-purpose package that meets the requirements, he says. It would basically, with the current proposed model, eliminate all the bagged salad industry. It would eliminate any of the value-added components, so all the fresh cut business. Lemaire said that there are food safety risks as well. Conservative MP Leanne Rood asked about the economic impact of not providing fresh fruit and vegetable trays. Lemaire said it would reduce consumption of fruits and vegetables, which is already far below recommended daily intake. packaging can drive consumption, and he said a further drop will cost money. Lemaire said the tax currently costs the greenhouse sector about $22 million a year, and that will rise to $100 million a year by 2030. So when you see we're bringing plastics back, we're going to see a lot from the left, and you're already seeing on social media says, wow, he hates the turtles. And actually learning that what they've been trying to do over the past handful of years has actually been worse for our environment and worse for our food industry and worse for people. And so Poilievre's like, we're going to get rid of that, and we're going to start dropping the cost of groceries down because we're eliminating a part of the packaging process, a part of the shipping process, to make it cheaper to ship the food and get it to our groceries. It's that simple. Poilievre lays it out pretty simple right here.
How long does this bread stay fresh and edible if it's not packaged? You ever think of taking your bread out when you go home and just leaving it unwrapped? How many days do you think it would be good before it gets dried out and moldy? How long would the other fresh produce here stay edible if it could not be plastic wrapped? The answer is a lot less time.
And so it really comes down to a conversation around the circular economy. There are packages that they can actually, the plastics they use, they can actually reuse and make it more circular. And then at the same time, you're actually preserving more food, so you're having less food loss and less waste. That is actually more helpful for the environment, more helpful for people. And people aren't going to like to see that conversation because plastics have been so ingrained in our brains that it's really bad and it's killing everybody. Sure, microplastics are a real thing. Plastic waste is a real thing, and that needs to be taken care of. But this is actually an effort to cut down on plastic waste, believe it or not. It almost feels like you're taking a step back to move a step forward. That's how it feels, and that's how it looks. And I think that's going to be coming down to an issue of messaging for the Conservative Party and Pierre Poilievre here. But to finish off our show, we know the thing that happened last night with the media members and the divide that's been created between Rebel News and the rest of the media apparatus, Independent News, and the MSM. And admittedly, I think there's people who could have done better on both sides, especially David Menzies didn't need to be getting into the face of random people trying to move equipment out of the building, but that's what he did and got his camera smacked out of his hand. And that created a whole issue. Here's the MSM, people from the establishment getting on a podcast and voicing their frustrations. And man, if you are listening with children around, I suggest this is your warning. Pause, listen to this another time, because this is a expletive-laced tirade, and it shows you how much they hate people like me.
There you go. This debate commission, they're on top of this thing, hey?
Wait, are we going to do this now, or are we going to revisit this thing?
Do it now.
Well, then let's fucking do it. Okay. Fuck these guys. Fuck these right-wing incel asswipes. Fuck them over and over and over again. This is a fucking election campaign, and they seized the weakness of Michelle Cormier and the commission to turn last night into a fucking clown show. Right. First of all, they start goading people. Cormier and the commission, of course, allow Ezra, an arsonist, into the room, and then they give him a nice bunch of fucking kindling and a match. And, they get into an argument with them. That allows them to tape everything. And then we, Corey, myself, Kathleen, we're all kicked out of. They just said their reaction is, all right, well, we're going to lock down the media filing room, which is where we were supposed to watch it. So they're like, okay, we're going to kick everybody out. That way it will maintain some integrity in this room. So they kick us out, but they leave the fucking rebel in. And then it just turns into complete pandemonium where they start harassing media, even as like the crew, like just regular workaday Joes are trying to remove the material. These guys are filming it, antagonizing them, provoking them. And then when people say, hey, get the fuck out of the way, they run to the police literally and say, I've been assaulted. Why won't you arrest them? That fucking menzoid twat. Fucking all over the place. And then it was so bad that the CBC crew, like literally Dave Cochran and Rosie Barton, had to be escorted by security because all these incel assholes were waiting for them. And they literally the police were concerned for their physical security. Like, these guys disrupted a democratic exercise. They delighted in it. They filmed it. They raised money off of it. And Michelle Cormier and the commission invited it all, melted down when it occurred, and had no plan, no ability, and no wit to try to manage it. It was just a complete fuck show from start to finish.
That's some nice language, isn't there? And that is the issue. I know people have, sure, I may have embellished a little bit. Maybe he just really upset Rebel News. Maybe he doesn't actually hate all of independent media. But that just shows you the disdain they have, at least for Rebel in this scenario. But the idea that they continue to blame Rebel for everything that happened after all the video clips we watched, it wasn't just on one side. There was another side to it as well. And you can claim who instigated. We don't know. We didn't see up to that point of who instigated it. But what we do know is chaos ensued in the media room, and then everyone blamed Rebel News for it. It is kind of a fascinating story to witness and follow up to this point, and showing how much it really frustrates the mainstream. It frustrates the establishment. The fact that police were called and the CBC, like Rosemary Barton, David Cochran, were running in fear of their lives. We love the exaggeration. The media loves to talk about themselves, don't they? And that's a lot of what we just witnessed. And so we're going to continue following this story and as it continues, because right now, as much as we see a huge election in our future and the result of it is really important to us, how it gets covered is also equally important, because it's beginning to sway hearts and minds. But anyways, enjoy your Friday. Have yourselves a good one. I'm out.